Well, and it's California. It's my California license plate. Thanks, baby. Isn't that funny? That used to be my my name, like Diva. Hey, there you are.
How are you?
Great. How are you?
Wonderful.
You look fabulous.
Compared to what?
COVID fabulous.
Generally,
you guys both look good. You're not screaming divas. You're beautiful singers.
Oh, thank you.
You are.
Carrie Alcama.
Yes, Carrie. Hi.
Hi.
Carrie.
Nice to meet you. Pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Glad to be on the show.
William Friedkin, but I call him Billy. Is that okay? We call you Billy?
Everybody calls me Billy.
Okay.
How is life? How are things? What's going on?
Well, you know, I don't know how different it is where you are, but here they set another record today for the coronavirus cases. But it's really horrible. But, you know, before that, I was in the hospital for 5 months. I had all kinds of things wrong. I had everything from E. coli in the blood to kidney problems to gout and several other things thrown in. They thought I was going to die on 3 or 4 occasions.
Oh my!
I didn't know about this.
But I told them I had to be on the show on July 15th, and
yeah.
so that was it. But so you know, I don't get bothered by being confined to the house at all. I do a lot of exercise now, a lot of reading, a lot of swimming and walking.
Oh, nice.
And, what's it like up there?
Well, I'm in Canada, as you know. Carrie's in Nashville.
Oh.
So in Canada, we are still where I am in Canada. We're in phase 2 still, but we live in the middle of a big forest. So like you, it doesn't bother us as much because we have a space and we can go outside and do things.
Yeah.
Singing, of course. But I mean, Carrie's in Nashville, and they're now. What phase are you in?
We had to go back into phase 2, and yesterday we had over 700 cases in one day. We're over 15,000 now for just my county. That's not including the state of Tennessee. It's just my county. I live right downtown Nashville, so that's Davidson County. No school. School is put on virtual until after Labor Day, and then they'll reevaluate.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it's really bad here. California has set a new record.
Yeah.
And it's just horrible. Do you ever go by the House of Cash on Johnny Cash Boulevard?
Yes, I know where that is.
I've been there. I was a friend of Johnny Cash and visited his house, and I recorded a song. His son actually was the recording engineer. We recorded his song "When the Man Comes Around" for a film I made called The Hunted, and he wrote that for my film, and we recorded it there in a tiny little room the size of a broom closet. But he had these wonderful women around taking care of him, his wife and her sister and a couple of nurses, and he was really pampered. But he was, did you ever meet him?
I never did, no.
Wonderful guy, just a absolutely great human being.
Just like, we read your book, which is the one that you gave me. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And it's an amazing book. Did you write that, or did you?
Yeah. Yeah, I had no help. I wrote it in longhand on yellow pads.
Whoa.
All over the world.
Wow.
And then I would send portions of it at a time to my editor at HarperCollins up here, Carrie. Mm-hmm. And she would suggest some changes, and I made the changes, and it came out. It's now been translated into several other languages, and there's an audio book of it now.
Oh, cool.
A lot of stuff. It won the best film book award in Italy and France 2 years ago.
Your life is fascinating. I mean, I can't remember what I did 10 years ago, and you remembered your whole life story. It's so how does a
You could if you had to. If someone said to you, write your life story, you would have to close it all in, sit down, and just remember. But what I did also was I went to a number of people that I could reach who were involved in a lot of the situations that I was involved in. And I asked them, I interviewed them. And here's the interesting thing about memory. They remembered the same events, but they remembered them a different way. And so I had to figure out, how to compensate for that. That was the most difficult part, because I trusted my own memory, but I also, it's like your view of this conversation will be different from Carrie's and from mine, because of what you're looking at and what I'm looking at.
Just
and
like
our
live
memory,
performance, right?
like live performance, yes. It says something different to everyone who hears it.
Now, I'm probably jumping the gun in this conversation, but I was just really curious because I know that you and Sandra have worked on an opera together, but throughout your whole career of film and TV, how did you decide or get into saying, I wanted to direct an opera? Have you always been an opera fan? Is that why that happened?
I'll tell you very briefly. I mentioned to you that Zubin Mehta is a good friend of mine, and we've been seeing each other, our families, for years. And one day at dinner at his house, he said to me, "Why don't you do an opera with me?" And this was in 1996. And I said, "Gee, Zubin, I've never seen an opera." And I hadn't. He said, "No, but we've talked a lot about operas." I said, "I've listened to a great many operas from a great many different composers and periods, but I've never seen a staging." And he said, "No, I think you'd be very good. What would you do if you had the chance?" And I said, in order to put him off, I said, "Well, I would do either one of the two Alban Berg operas, which are Wozzeck and Lulu."
Yes.
Now, these are 20th century operas, as you know, and they are not beloved.
No.
Certainly in Italy, which is what he was talking about, Florence,
right,
where they don't love German opera, and they especially don't love Wozzeck or Lulu.
Right.
And but I said, well, I'd do either one of those because I really did like them and I appreciated them.
Sure.
And he went out of the room and he came back with his diary, which was about this thick. And it had all of his bookings for the next 5 years. And he leafed through that at the dinner table. And he said, "Okay, I'll do Wozzeck with you in 2 years if you commit to it now." And
oh my God.
My wife said, "Oh, go ahead, it'll be fun." And I said, "Yeah, fun for you."
Yeah.
But so I said, "Okay." And for a year, I did nothing. And then I was making a film, and then I got a call from him saying, "How is our Wozzeck coming?" And I hadn't done anything. And at that point, I began to study German so I could read the opera in German.
Okay.
And read, the text, the libretto, as you say. And I began to think about it, and I had a concept. By the time I had to send that concept off to the technicians at Florence.
Okay.
So, and I sent them sketches for what I would do with the sets, and I decided to do it as kind of a with what we call different size and shapes of the stage.
Oh.
So there would be some scenes that were done with a low ceiling, like there's a scene in the tavern where Wozzeck comes in the last act, and he comes in for a drink, and all the patrons in the bar see the blood on his hands. And that scene was done with half the stage, like one of those low ceiling bars in Germany.
Okay.
And then when he left the scene, as he was leaving, all of the patrons began to point at him and point at his hands, and the stage slowly narrowed in until he was the only one on the stage looking at the blood on his hands. And then he pushes back against the stage, closing in on him, and suddenly he's outdoors in the forest again, where he killed Marie.
Wow.
And that was the whole stage.
Okay.
And so I used what we call in cinema dynamic framing.
Okay.
I used dynamic framing of the stage. The house where Wozzeck and Marie lived with their little child, I had on invisible rollers so that from behind, the stagehands could move it from far upstage to far downstage.
Okay.
Like you were going into a close-up.
Yeah.
And I haven't done that on any of the other operas I directed.
No.
But I used that on Wozzeck, a kind of cinema technique.
Well, you obviously loved doing it, because then you did it again.
Yeah.
So
everything I did after that came from that. I never had an agent in opera.
You just did it.
I would just get called by various conductors and opera companies.
Okay.
I did Aida twice in Torino, and with two different casts.
Cool.
And then we did it in Oman. It moved. I did Samson and Delilah in Tel Aviv.
Oh, cool.
Which we later staged in Timna, where Samson and Delilah lived.
That's awesome. Okay.
And so I've done quite a few, and I did. The best experience I ever had was with Sandra on Suor Angelica.
Yay.
First of all, it's an amazing piece of work.
Yes.
You know, it's beyond. And second of all, I decided to do it literally as Puccini wanted it done. I didn't do any interpretation that would exceed the period and the time and the things that he wanted. Like, and I got into a big beef, as Sandra knows, with James Conlon, the conductor.
About the vision.
What?
Right? About the ending.
Well, in the ending, Puccini says, the angel of mercy appears. And that, of course, is the mother of God. It's Mary. And I'm not Catholic, but I can read a libretto. Yeah. And I understood that the composer knew what he wanted. And I said that to Conlon publicly. You know, people were watching the rehearsal, and Placido was there. And I said, he begged me not to do that because he was a lapsed Catholic. And I was not Catholic, but, you know, this is what Puccini wanted. And I said, James, this opera is not about you. It's about Suor Angelica. And to her, in her final moments of life, the angel of mercy appears. That doesn't mean a stained glass window lights up or the statue of a crucifix appears on the wall.
Interesting.
So I had an effect where a very lovely young woman appears in midair above her and brings her dead son out of the church. Beckons her dead son.
Not a dry eye in the house, including Placido Domingo crying for 15 minutes after the show was over.
Whoa.
Well, he said to me at the after party, he said, "Today you have made all of Los Angeles Catholic."
That's great.
But I think Conlon hates me to this day
But you were
because
true to yourself. You were honest and you were true to the libretto and you were true to what you believe in, and you are the director, and it is your responsibility to tell the story.
Mhm.
well, I believe, Sandra, as I think we've talked about this, and Carrie, that the most important element of the opera is the work itself. Even though the composer is more than not long dead. The composer's dead, but what he has written is the most important element. Then come the performers. There is a kind of a sliding scale. It's not this far apart. It's this far apart.
Right.
But it's the piece itself, the performers, the conductor, and then the stage director. I realized that as the stage director, I was last on the totem pole. But nevertheless, what I had to do was fulfill the concept of the composer. And that was it. Now, I don't know what they did in the first performances, but the libretto says the angel of mercy appears.
Yeah,
And that meant something to me.
sure.
It still is the highlight of my career. I have my little flowers here still. It's on my
Oh, wow, yes.
That's it. But you know, you taught me, Carrie and I have discussed this, and I say this a lot in interviews. You gave me the best piece of advice that anyone could ever give me, and that is to find stillness on stage. And you told me during that aria, the Senza Mama, first off, you whispered something in my ear and said, think of your father right before I sang that aria. But you told me to trust the stillness. And as an actor, it's impossible. It's really hard to do because you think.
Yeah, I know. But you belong to the new generation of opera singers who want to give a performance, not a concert.
Right.
You know, in the past, a singer as great as Pavarotti could just come out on stage and give a concert. He didn't have to pretend anything. He wore the costume, but he didn't have to really act it.
No.
And today I found that the great singers want to perform it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been very fortunate in working with people, like that. And I've never had any other problems with conductors all over, the world where I have directed operas. But this thing with Conlon, I didn't realize how powerful a feeling he had against the whole idea of Catholicism, which made me wonder, why would you agree to do that opera?
Absolutely.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah.
She is Sister Angelica. She's a nun. Mm-hmm. She's not working in a bar somewhere.
No. How is it different directing a movie or television opposed to opera? Is it different? Is it similar?
No. The only difference on the stage is you have no camera. With a camera, as a director, you can decide what you want the audience to see and exactly when you want them to see it or see something else that's happening in the film. But on the stage, you can do the same thing with staging and lighting that emphasizes one character and de-emphasizes another, or you can emphasize a certain area of the stage and not the others, and then your interpretation worked out with the singers is the same as you do with great actors. I don't go to the great actors I've worked with, some of whom have won Academy Awards. I don't go to them and and dictate to them how to do it. I'll simply make a suggestion. And as with Sandra, it's kind of, you become kind of like a psychiatrist, you know, in the sense that you find out what it is that moves them, or what it is that makes them sad or happy. And that's the same thing I did with the little girl in The Exorcist, you know. And I would whisper in her ear, Sandra, before she had to do a scene, something relative to feelings she had that she told me about when we first met. And I very much encourage that, which means that as the director, you have to reveal a lot about yourself as well.
Yeah. Well,
so then you would say working with opera singers versus working with actors really isn't a whole lot of difference then?
No, they want the same. Great singers, I believe, want the same as what great actors want, which is a psychological underpinning for their character and a staging that works.
Love that.
Where they can be seen and heard. You're not going to do a staging where you're hiding, you know, the character. But I've seen that.
Yes.
I've seen such things where I'm sure you have to fight to be seen on the stage.
No, I could hug you for that, because those are the directors that I know Sandra and I think I could say this for Sandra, gravitate towards, are the ones that really want all of it. They want the singing, they want the acting, they want a story. I want to rip the audience's heart out. I want stillness from the audience too. I want to know that they can barely take a breath. So that's so I could hug you for that. Thanks.
Give us the freedom.
No, but that's because I had never really worked in the world of opera. I came in with that notion. I didn't read about it somewhere.
Okay.
I came in realizing that opera singers were not pawns to be shifted about willy-nilly. You know, that they were portraying characters. You know, and they had to be seen and heard clearly. That was first. And then in most of the rehearsals that I did, we would talk about the characters, not necessarily work on you go there and then you go here or you go there. For the most part, Sandra, I think you'll recall when we worked together, the singers found their own way. Yeah. You found your way, but in relation to the other singers. You weren't giving a solo.
We had the rehearsal time too, and we had the time to explore all of that. And
do you not now? Really?
No.
Why?
Curious.
New rehearsal, new productions a little bit more, but nothing like what we had. We were so fortunate there, and we had such a great close-knit cast that everybody really fed off of each other. But you created that atmosphere, and I think that's what a great director does, is allow us to put our personal stamp on it, yet still kind of follow your path that you have created for us. And it's a collaboration, and you allowed us to do that.
No doubt. But the path was Puccini's path. Yes. The path is always I've seen productions of certain classic works that absolutely appalled me since. There was a production in Munich what was it?
Rigoletto?
Rigoletto, that was done in the newsroom in Iraq. It was staged in a newsroom in Iraq as a contemporary work. And then I've seen other production, one that Zubin conducted, where all the singers were masked and dressed as, I don't know what the hell they were supposed to be, gorillas or bunny rabbits.
Oh, yes.
It was gorillas.
The gorillas, was that Nabucco?
Probably. Everyone in the cast was dressed as a gorilla. And then I saw a production by a great director who did it here in LA, a really great director, but who so underlit the stage that you couldn't tell the characters unless you knew the libretto itself. If you knew who they were supposed to be, you could figure it out. But if you came to this opera fresh, you didn't know who the hell was singing.
I know. So I want to ask you, let's go there, because you're known as a film, cinema, TV, documentary director. How does a kid from the north side of Chicago become William Friedkin, the Academy Award-winning director?
There are only three things that are necessary to, unlike your mutual professions, I would not say that one of those things is talent to do what I did. There are three things that are required.
Okay.
Ambition is the first. Luck is the second. And the grace of God is third and most important. The grace of God. I never went to college. I never studied filmmaking.
Okay.
I've never had one lesson in how to make the film or use a camera or anything.
Wow.
But I can honestly tell you, it's the grace of God, the path that I've taken. And it's why I don't go crazy on the rare occasions when I get sick, because I realize that that's the grace of God as well. And I really believe that there is a force that controls our lives. And it's different for everyone. You meet somebody, you're attracted to them, you fall in love with them perhaps. Somebody else meets the same person and gets no feeling whatever. Mm-hmm. It's, it's the grace of God. And in order to do what I've done, and I'm sure what you've done, one of the characteristics we share is ambition. You must be ambitious to do the kind of work and study that you do to perfect your instrument. You've got to be ambitious and believe. And then you need a bit of luck there, Yeah. And
I would like to add a fourth thing, though, and that is being a good human being.
Well, there are a lot of people I couldn't characterize that way, Sandra, that are very successful. I won't lie to you. They're very successful, but I wouldn't add that. I think in terms of you saying it, you're absolutely right, because I believe you are.
And I think you are.
Well, but we all have our faults, of course, but without ambition, luck, and the grace of God, you're not going to succeed in any creative position. It's not so. You can't go to law school for it or learn it somewhere, or medical school, which require specifically acquired skills. But to sing the way the two of you do is a gift of God.
Absolutely.
You can learn, how to put forth the notes. You can learn, and you can, in collaboration with the conductor, decide the tempi, the volume, louder or softer, but the rest is from God. Nobody can go to school and learn to become a successful opera singer. You can learn to sing opera,
sure,
but not to become a successful singer. That's a gift.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. What I love about that is Sandra and I have been friends for a long time, And what we've discovered is that our ambitions were different levels, different. She knew she wanted to be at the Met. That was her goal. I want to sing on the Metropolitan Opera stage. My goal was, because no one actually thought I could make a living doing it, and I wanted to prove them wrong. I wanted to say, no, I can buy a house doing this. I can pay my bills by singing opera. I mean, who does that? And so I really wanted that. And then my goals changed because I thought I had accomplished that. And I said, well, now I want to work with some of the best. It doesn't matter what the stage is, but I want to work with some of the best conductors, directors, and singers. And I've been really fortunate enough to be able to say I've done that. There's still opera houses I want to step foot on. But it was our ambition, yeah, hopefully, God willing. But I love that conversation between Sandra and I about what our ambitious goals were.
Yeah.
Yes, they differed in small ways. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have the gift somehow. I remember one night to one of Sandra's performances, I brought Barbara Streisand, who was a friend of mine.
Wow.
And she's never done this. At the end of Sandra's performance, she said to me, I want to meet her. Now, she doesn't do that. She doesn't want to meet anybody. You know, she lives in a world where they want to meet her.
Sure.
And she lives that world out.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, and at the end, there was another opera that it was Il Trittico, so there were 3 operas. Mm-hmm. And there was another opera, Gianni Schicchi, which followed Suor Angelica. And she waded through it and all that, and then she said, come on, let's go backstage. And I took her backstage, and she was like a student talking to Sandra. She asked her, I stayed away from their private conversation, but I remember hearing her ask Sandra how she achieved certain techniques.
How do you sing like that, Sandra? And I said, you're Barbara Streisand. Asking me.
Well, she is totally
an honest place. It was sincere and open, and truly she wanted to know. And cool. That's why she is who she is, because she's always wanting to learn and grow and experience new things, just like you taking on opera.
Yeah.
Well, she had this natural gift. You know, her gift, everybody in her youth told her, get her nose changed, you know, change this, and she resisted all of that from people who could hire or fire her. Yeah. And they all wanted to change her, but she believed in herself, which is, I guess, another very important thing for anyone in the creative arts or anything. You must believe in yourself.
It's true.
Even when times are tough.
Yeah.
Yes, dear.
Right.
Have you?
You know, I mean, we wanted all about your directing, but I want to go back to that point when we were talking about a gift and a talent. And religion seems to be something that circles back to you a lot, with you watching an exorcism, you watching a death row inmate get killed. And it seems like religion is so much a part of your life. Was that just by accident, or has it enlightened you? Has it changed your life? All of that?
Well, I would say faith.
Okay.
More than organized religion.
Yeah.
I certainly believe in God. And that's a belief that you have. Or there have been some very intelligent and prominent people who did not believe in God. A guy like Christopher Hitchens, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. His last book before he died a couple of years ago was called God Is Not Great.
Yeah.
And there is a thing in the Catholic Church known as the Devil's Advocate. That's it's a real title. And the Devil's Advocate is the guy who argues before the College of Cardinals and the Pope as to whether or not somebody should be granted sainthood, somebody from the past. And in the case of Mother Teresa, when Mother Teresa was proposed for sainthood, Christopher Hitchens was the devil's advocate who spoke against her being a saint. And he spent a large part of his life saying that she was a fraud. And he spoke against her sainthood. And it was granted, but he was the devil's advocate in that case as a non-believer. And I've read him, and I'm really impressed with his writing and his thinking, but I just have within me the belief that he didn't have.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about a lot of the tenets of the church or the synagogue or the mosque. I'm just not sure of a lot of the tenets of the human-made version of faith. But I personally have faith in a creator. I think if everything goes back to the Big Bang, who caused the Big Bang?
Right.
Who caused whatever there was to bang?
Yeah.
You know?
True.
Somebody, some force. You know, it's called different things sometimes, Sandra. It's called nature, whatever. But
Spiritualism,
yeah. But God is good enough for me. And I believe strongly. And I was raised in the Jewish religion, which I never felt close to.
Interesting.
I never felt close to the Jewish faith. And as I mentioned, I'm not Catholic, but I've come closer to experience faith in a Catholic church and from Catholic people who are really believers. And when I hear somebody say they don't believe, they have no belief, I find it strange. But, you know, I respect it, but I don't relate to it. There's just so much in life that makes us think about the gift of faith, the mystery of faith. And that's what The Exorcist is about. The Exorcist is about the mystery of faith.
Brilliant.
Love it.
And you experienced an exorcism.
I watched, I got to meet the man who was the Vatican exorcist for 31 years. His name was Father Gabriele Amort. And he had performed thousands over 31 years. I never particularly believed a lot in exorcism, even when I made the film. There was an actual case that it was based on, and I tried to reflect that case. Took place in 1949 in Silver Spring, Maryland. Was a 14-year-old boy whose family was Lutheran. And he was examined by every kind of medicine that existed at the time. Psychiatric, internal medicine, whatever. They could find no answer to what was ailing him, so they turned to the Lutheran Church. And the Lutheran minister said, "We have nothing to deal with this. Go across town and try the Catholics." And they did. And Bill Blatty, who wrote The Exorcist, was an undergraduate at Georgetown University, where the film takes place, when that case appeared. And it was on the front page. People can still Google it. It was the front page of the Washington Post, August 20th, 1949. A detailed description of the manifestations and what happened in that case. And Blatty, as a student, thought, if this can be true, if this is possibly true, this is existence of good and evil and the existence of God. It's religious nirvana.
Yeah.
And he wrote that book. He tried to write it as fact, but the church wouldn't give him any information about it. They don't talk about it much because, and the way I only got permission from Father Amort. If I had gone to the Vatican itself, they would have denied permission. They don't think of it as a show. They, you know, they don't think of it as an event to be witnessed. But when I witnessed and filmed this exorcism, which has been on Netflix now for about almost 4 years, I think.
Yeah.
I believe that what I saw was happening. It was a woman in her 40s who was extremely upset and screwed up and speaking in different languages that she had never learned and with superhuman strength. And the exorcism was not successful. This was the 9th exorcism this woman had gone through unsuccessfully. And Father Amort was planning, because so often these things take years.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're not successful because the exorcist's belief is that God, Jesus, the Son of God, is who they're praying to do the exorcism. And Jesus will do it or not as he sees fit. And this was this woman's 9th, and he was going to do her 10th. In a matter of months, couple of months, he passed away. And he is the most spiritual person I've ever met.
Wow.
He would make a believer out of you.
Did it, I mean, the concept.
Yeah, it scared the hell out.
Yeah, scared the shit out of you. Excuse me,
Yeah.
but I mean, okay.
I was terrified. I sat as close to the two of them with a little film camera as I'm sitting putting my finger on it now, as I'm sitting to this monitor. I was 2 feet away. And I saw this thing go through its stages, and I was terrified beyond belief.
Absolutely.
I just kept the camera on them and let it play out. But it was really disturbing, and a lot of that's it's covered in the little Netflix documentary I made about it.
Mhm.
Wow, that's fascinating. That almost seems like life-changing to me, and that it is recognition that there is a higher being out there, that it's not us human beings here, that there's something else bigger, higher, better, powerful than us.
Yes, well, there is. It's hard to admit that. I understand, but there is.
Especially the spiritual warfare, which is what I grew up hearing, between good and evil, the yin and the yang of it all. Was a lot of people like to just believe the God part, but they don't want to recognize the other side of it. So, and you really just kind of put it in everybody's face, like this is here and this is happening. So it's kind of amazing.
Well, Father Amort, I had a lot of questions for him.
Sure.
And I asked him, he spoke about the devil, Satan.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that the devil is spirit. He said there is no figure, with horns and a tail or any of that depiction.
Mm-hmm.
The devil is spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he had been able to speak with this spirit and converse with the spirit. And he also told me that the devil was a creature of God and at one time had goodness
Mm-hmm.
attached to itself or himself, but went astray, went bad, and went into darkness. And there's a documentary that's been made about me that's on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
It's called Friedkin Uncut.
Yes. Cool. Okay.
It's very good, very well. I didn't make it, but I'm the subject of it. I like it. But in it, I mean, the first thing I say is that to me, the two most interesting people in history were Hitler and Jesus. Hitler, because he took an entire generation of people into hell.
Yeah.
They followed this madman into hell.
Yes.
And Jesus, because he lifted and continues to lift so many people to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still read a great deal about both of them. And to me, they're the most amazing historical figures, yin and yang, as you say,
Mm-hmm.
Carrie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your aha moment, Billy? I want to go back now to your directing, because you're so brilliant at it. And we watched last night the movie that we read, you said was your favorite, and that was Jade. We watched.
Well, I'm not sure it's my favorite, but it is one I had a lot of fun making. But my favorite film is not one of my own. I don't see my own films. The film that caused me to become a director, and I would love to ask the two of you what caused you to want to sing out, what work it was. But in my case, I was about 20 years old and I saw Citizen Kane. I was working in live television in Chicago. A friend of mine whose opinions I trust said, there's a movie playing at this revival theater on the near north side of Chicago. It was called the Surf Theater then. It was Citizen Kane, which I'd never heard of. And on a Saturday afternoon, I went to the noon show of Citizen Kane, and I stayed there all day. I watched it 5 consecutive times, and I was just stunned by the incredible work that it synthesized all in one piece. The best cinematography I'd ever seen, the best editing, the best lighting, the best performance, the best script. Everything about it was in a class by itself. And it has influenced, probably millions of young filmmakers, even though it was not a successful at the box office film. And I saw that and I said to myself, this is what I want to do. Wow. I hope to one day make a film that could be mentioned in the same sentence with Citizen Kane. Wow. And I haven't done that. I still have the hope, but the hope diminishes as the years. No, seriously.
I think you have 3 movies that definitely could be said in the same sentence as Citizen Kane.
No, you're just too kind, and we're too fond of each other. But believe me, I know. There's nothing that I can compare to Beethoven's 5th or 9th Symphony. There's nothing that I care to talk about in the symphonic world that is in a class with those works, on a grand scale that everyone can recognize, that everyone knows when they hear them.
But it's a matter of taste too. Not everybody likes that. Not everybody would like Citizen Kane. Some people might like The French Connection better, or they might like To Live and Die in LA or The Exorcist.
Well, they're not that well informed. What about you? Was there one work that made each of you want to do that?
What was your aha moment?
I had, I grew up singing in church and in school choirs and things, but I had a high school choir director that said, I think you can do this. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what is that? And my mom got online. I'm a native Floridian, and figured out that not online, but my mom figured out that there was a 3 tenors concert down in Miami, and took me. And when I watched those 3 gentlemen do what they did, I thought, oh my gosh, I had no idea I could learn how to do that with my voice. And so I said, I want to do that. I want to see if I can do it. And then, I got into college, and then Placido started a young artist program in Washington, D.C., and I got in. And then, there you go.
She's Carrie now. And mine was Placido too. I saw Placido singing Tosca on TV live from Rome. And church, we have very similar stories, really. And church choir, and I saw Placido, and I, at 11 years old, pointed to the screen, and I said, Mom, I want to do that. And she said, yeah, honey, okay, yeah. And, fast forward, that was my degree in college, and I said, I want to be singing on the Met stage by the time I'm 30. And my 35th birthday, I sang Cyrano de Bergerac with Placido Domingo as Cyrano, and he sang Happy Birthday to me, and I just felt, it was like, but you say ambition, and my whole life was opera. Like everything I did till that moment was to get there.
Well, that's another factor, isn't it? Which is inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
But that's luck. That's where luck comes in. You had to be at the right place at the right time to see Placido perform this on television and the three tenors in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Did Zubin conduct that, Carrie?
I don't remember.
He did most of them.
He did.
He started it. He was the conductor for the three tenors and all the early major performances.
Can I tell
including Las Vegas?
I have to say that I have to set this straight for the record. I'm so grateful for Placido starting that young artist program and for being one of the ones on the panel that chose me to be in the program. But I have to say, when I was a kid and I heard Pavarotti do what he did, that just ripped my heart out of my body. And I just thought, I've just been a super fan of his, ever since. So, and the documentary that was just put out by Ron Howard from him was really interesting and enlightening. And also Pavarotti was one of my father's favorites. And so that connected us in a way with opera. So he had a special place in my heart for that. I had to just put that on the record.
Yeah. Well, that was an incredible performance. The three tenors. Every time you saw it, it was something more amazing to hear and to see. It was just great.
Mm-hmm. When I was a student at USC in LA, they asked a lot of us music students if we wanted to be ushers or sing in the chorus.
Where?
When it was at Dodger Stadium, the three tenors. Oh. Remember that with as well. And I wasn't good enough to be in the chorus. So I was usher. And I got about that far away from Placido Domingo and all, Luciano and Jose Carreras. And literally, I just was like,
yeah, of course.
All the celebrities. So I seated Richard Simmons, the most, the weight loss guru, Richard Simmons.
Yeah, I remember him.
He's like, honey, come on, come jazzercise with me. I got to see people here.
How are we talking about Richard Simmons on this video? I don't understand.
Because he was there.
And it's making Billy laugh, and I love that.
The room where it all happened. So, say in Hamilton.
Mm-hmm. How many cars have you crashed making films? I want to know this because they all is that French connection.
How many what, Sandra?
Cars. How many cars did you wreck making your movies?
Not that many.
Really?
No. I think we had 2 cars that got a little smashed, but that's about it. Then in Sorcerer, I was going for a stunt where a car rolls on its side and turns over, and that took away about 15 cars. We couldn't do it. I finally had to bring in this very famous stuntman from outside who could do this gag.
Yeah.
And I brought him in, and he was able to do it in one take.
Wow.
But I only do one take of anything, unless it's something that's broken or something. But by the grace of God, I never had anyone get a twisted ankle on a film, and I wouldn't. I don't believe it's worth it.
Okay.
If a mouse got a twisted ankle to get an effect in a film, so it has to look dangerous but not be dangerous, and that's the trick. Today they can do that a lot easier because they have computer generated imagery, which I never had, but they can do the most dangerous and bizarre effects without any difficulty at all. Everything that you see in the films that I did, we had to do. And it was only, again, by the grace of God that we didn't hurt somebody.
And you did a lot of them yourself, right? You filmed a lot of those.
Yeah, I filmed the good part of the chase in The French Connection.
Whoa.
Because the the director of photography and the camera operator, were both married men with children, and I wasn't at the time.
Okay.
And so I didn't want them to have to get inside that car doing 90 miles an hour with no control through the streets of Brooklyn.
Wow.
Did you have permits for all of that?
No, I had permits for none of it. Who would give you a permit to do that?
So
nobody. We just did it. We did it. I had like-minded people working with me.
Oh, I love you.
Let's do it.
And nobody got arrested?
No, because a lot of the like-minded people were cops. They were off-duty cops.
Movies nowadays. What do you think of them?
Oh, yeah.
I don't see a lot of films now.
No.
I look at older films. We have a screening room at home, and I look at older films that I've always loved. But, first of all, there's no theaters to go to. But second, the quality of the stuff doesn't really appeal to me. No. It's a lot of CGI, a lot of superheroes and heroines, flying across the screen in a cape and tights and saving the world.
Story over and over, isn't it, Billy? It's the same.
Yeah, it's not for me.
So predictable.
Yeah. It is for a lot of people. These films make a lot of money, especially young people, but they're just not for me. No. So I listen to music and read a lot. I read a lot more than I normally would have been able to.
Yeah, I know.
What about the movie? I had told Sandra I had to ask you this, but what about the movie that came out with John Krasinski and his wife called A Quiet Time? And how
A Quiet Place.
A Quiet Place, sorry.
I love that. I thought it was terrific.
I did too. There was something about that.
It was that's the real deal. I love. They've made a sequel.
Yes.
That they can't release because there's no theaters open, and the only alternative is to release it on Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu or something like that.
Yeah. So, what makes a great artist? Do you think? What makes a great? If you had to say a great actor, great artist, what would you say?
Well, as I told you, I believe it's a gift.
Yeah.
I mean, no one can learn to act like Spencer Tracy or Katharine Hepburn, and there are very few of those around in American film. Frankly, Carrie, I don't believe there's a lot of Johnny Cashes around today. Or Waylon Jennings or some of the greats of that. So what makes a great artist? First of all, it's in the eye of the beholder. Someone that you may think is great, I may not even have noticed.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can name an actor who, Marlon Brando was very interesting, but he was very unusual. You can't learn how to do that. You can't even imitate it. And the big loss in American film has been the scripts, the writing. It's all come down to that spandex type of picture.
Interesting.
But there were great screenwriters when I started back in the day. There are few now. The legendary directors are all gone.
Yeah.
You know, people like Fellini and Michelangelo Antonioni and Ingmar Bergman and so many others. And the Americans were so great, like John Ford. And
you found it seems like in your movies, for instance, I just said last night we watched Jade, and you have a young David Caruso in that. And it seems like a lot of your movies, you use these young artists that had so much talent that were just ready to explode. Did you choose them? Did you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you that I don't think it's too much different in opera, but it's the cast. 90% of the effectiveness of a film or a play or an opera is the cast. And if you've miscast a role, it's never going to work. No matter what you do, no matter how cleverly you direct it, or your concept, how interesting or whatever, if the cast isn't perfect, the film's not going to work.
Yeah,
That's one thing about Citizen Kane. Everybody is spot on and great. And I had that with The Exorcist. I had a great cast, and they made the film.
Yes.
Including two people who had never been in a film before. Jason Miller, who played Father Karras, and Linda Blair, who was 13 years old.
Wow.
Brilliant. Really. No, Carrie,
That was a gift of the movie God.
There you go. Do you feel the same about film writers and scripts as TV? Do you think that is there any talent in America for TV writing?
There has been, and I can name, off the top of my head, that fellow David Chase who wrote The Sopranos.
Yeah.
He created, did you guys ever see any of those?
Yes.
Those are sensational. And there are various other things. There's a lot of interesting things happening in television or streaming.
Tell me now, okay, so you've had an amazing career. You have. And you've won how many Academy Awards?
I know I've got one downstairs somewhere.
Any regrets in your career? Anything you change?
Probably so, but they would require a lot of context to go into.
Okay.
Not all of the films I made are of the same quality by far. Some of them just don't work. And that was, mostly my fault. Where, I screwed up. And this happened. If you make enough films, you're going to eventually screw up.
Well, it's the same with opera. If you sing enough performances, you're eventually going to screw up. You're going to pick one that, bad idea.
Yeah.
Or perhaps the production wasn't what it should have been. So I do have some regrets, but overall, no. I mean, to have a job and a career where you can make anything is a gift. Yeah. Make cinema or make opera or, make whatever the hell it is. I don't think of myself, and I've said this, it's in that documentary that I mentioned that's on Amazon. Think of myself as an artist at all. I never even want to go there. I think it's a profession. And as a profession, it's a good impression. It's a good profession, but there are people, of course, who have made art out of cinema, but I'm not one of them. Fellini has, without a doubt, has made art, as has Alain Resnais and Antonioni and Ingmar Bergman.
Japanese, what's his name? Japanese,
Akira Kurosawa.
Kurosawa. Beautiful.
Akira Kurosawa was a great artist. Absolutely. I'm not in that league, and you don't need to say, oh no, come on, no, I'm not. I know. No, I know that I'm not, but because I've seen their films. So I know what the hell they achieved. A lot of people have done it a few times. A few people have done it a lot of times, but no, I certainly am not an artist. I don't set out to make art. When I directed opera, I simply set out to tell the story that the composer and the librettist, often the same person, but not always, had called for. Theirs was the art. The art of Il Tritico, which Sandra and I worked on. That's great art. That's unbelievable. It's not as often as mentioned as Tosca or Aida or, the standard classic repertoire. It is often not mentioned in that class. But to me, it's every bit as good. It's an amazing accomplishment. Yeah. But again, it required, which I was lucky to have, a fantastic cast for all three of them. That's what made it.
What you want to say, Carrie?
I just wanted to ask you, then would you call yourself a gifted storyteller?
I would take out the one word out of that. A storyteller, yes.
Okay.
And that's what you're trying to do on film. Not always succeeding. Okay. But there are many ways to tell a story, and the most interesting way to do that is a way that has not been done before.
Yeah.
Like Citizen Kane stands by itself as a great work of art. No story has been told quite like that or so well, and has been so influential.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go watch that tonight. You have inspired me to watch it again.
Oh, listen, give yourself to it, though. Yeah. Don't be running off to pick up a phone call.
Oh, no. When we sit down at night, we are immersed in what we're watching. So,
well, you'll be immersed in this. Mm-hmm. It's extraordinary. I would say it's probably the 9th symphony of cinema.
Okay. Wow.
What do you still want to achieve and do in your life, Billy? What haven't you done that you're like, I got to do it still?
Not a particular project per se, but I just love to have the ability to keep doing it. And I have not made a lot of films in well over 50 years. I think I made 15 films. I think that's the number, because it takes me a long time to find something, that I really want to do, that I think is worth doing. And I don't always succeed, but there's some things that I feel are worth doing and others that I don't.
I know.
You saw Stravinsky conduct live.
Yes, at Orchestra Hall in Chicago.
That's amazing.
And he was brought out. He was really up in years. I don't know whether he was in his 90s yet or late 80s, certainly. And he was helped to the podium. But there was, of course, no music stand and no music on the podium. And this rather frail creature was helped to the podium, and there was a hush that came over the audience. And I happened to be there that night.
Wow.
And he gave the downbeat, and it unleashed an earthquake of incredible sound.
Wow.
It was the Rite of Spring. And that was written in 1913 and first performed as a ballet.
Yeah.
Where it was completely unsuccessful.
Yes, they hated it.
Total failure.
Yeah.
People threw things at the stage. And there were fights that broke out in the audience.
Yes.
And little did anybody know that was going to be the seminal work of the 20th century,
Right.
which it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how you can only define greatness, not just something you like.
Right.
There are a lot of things I like, but I mean, I like the Miles Davis Sextet.
Yeah.
and their recording of Kind of Blue, which that album, which is the best-selling jazz album of all time,
Yeah.
has been around since 1960. That's a long time in jazz.
Yeah, sure.
But I saw the Miles Davis Sextet live in Chicago many times.
Wow.
They played at a place called the Sutherland Hotel on the south side of Chicago. It was around 47th and South Parkway.
Okay.
And they played on top of the bar. And I thought I was going down there. I was about the only white guy. And I knew this stuff was great, but I didn't realize that they were
great
masterpieces that would live forever. And this was Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, Bill Evans, and Philly Joe Jones, and Paul Chambers was the bassist.
I mean,
it was beyond that. That was great American art.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that then. I just thought, this is sensational. But it was brand new and it was something else. I still listen to that stuff.
Cool.
I can still listen to all of those artists I mentioned doing their own solo stuff. I love jazz. I guess I have a great love for music. I have a great love for painting, of course, but I've never taken a brush to canvas.
Okay.
Because I've seen all 36 of the known Vermeers.
Really?
Yeah, they all played at the National.
Billy's seen a lot, and Billy has done a lot. I'm telling you, you have lived your life, and I admire it so much. You know, you lived it. How many people can say that they lived their life fully? Well,
you guys are doing that. I'm proud of you both, and it's a pleasure to be on your podcast. Are you guys having fun with this?
Yes.
You know, I think the biggest, I'll speak for myself, but we've talked about it all the time. We have learned so much about so many different people and about so many different things doing this, because I think that by doing it by video, there's kind of a barrier that allows us to ask things that we might not ask or talk about in person.
Sure.
And I think that our viewers feel that as well. Carrie's like, no,
I'd ask you anything. I don't care.
No,
helping people get through this. People feel, they know that we're feeling all the same things that they're feeling. And I'm sure you're feeling it as well. You want to get out. You want to do things. You want to see your family and friends, and you can't, just like us. And
well, we see our family and friends. They come over. They come over and we sit outside an appropriate distance away.
Yes.
It's not quite the same. Last night we had 2 friends over, or last afternoon for lunch. And, you know, we still managed to keep that contact going.
I think for me, it's really about the connection. I always say my people. I miss my creative people. I miss that connection, that camaraderie, that laughter, those deep conversations that sometimes you end up in after a rehearsal over cocktails or whatever. And that's why this to me is, in a way, Sandra and I've said this numerous times, that it's kind of like a therapy session, because it fills that void that I'm missing right now, being in a rehearsal room, being on a stage, or these conversations. So thank you so much for talking to us and hanging out for an hour.
It was a great pleasure. A great, great pleasure to meet you, Carrie, and to see you again, Sandra. Really, it does my heart good. And stay in touch, will you?